The seat I never had. How my family forgot me, until I became the boss they didn't recognize. It was the way his face changed that I'll never forget. 1 second, smug and overconfident, gripping my dad's shoulder like he already belonged, then suddenly, eyes wide, jaw slightly open, voice cracking just a bit. "Hello, boss." That's what he called me. Boss. In front of my whole family. My sister's boyfriend. The one everyone had been hyping up for weeks like he was the second coming of Steve Jobs. The guy I'd apparently been banned from meeting because, and I quote, "We don't want you embarrassing yourself in front of real success." Real success. That one stung a little more than I cared to admit. Because sure, I hadn't followed the straight path they all praised. I didn't brag, didn't post flashy updates, didn't parade my titles, but I built something. Quietly. Patiently. Away from their constant measuring sticks. They never asked. I never offered. That was the deal. Until this video call. It started as a joke. My business partner and I were working late, ironing out our launch timelines when his phone buzzed. He flipped the camera, laughed, and said, "You won't believe who's here." And there they were, my parents, my sister, and her new boyfriend. Wine glasses clinking, smiles for miles. A whole birthday dinner I wasn't invited to. "Is that my sister's boyfriend?" asked, squinting into the screen. The moment he recognized me was electric. You could feel the room freeze on their side. He stood up so fast he nearly knocked over a chair. "Hey, I didn't know you were friends with the boss. I've been interviewing for weeks at his company. Big project manager role, top tier. Everyone's saying the team culture is incredible. You run the innovation wing, right?" "Sir, it's an honor." I didn't even flinch. Just looked into the screen, nodded, and said, "Nice to see you too, Ethan." I could see it all behind my dad's forced smile, the calculations, the confusion. His hand tightened on the back of the chair. My mom blinked like someone had flicked the lights on too suddenly. My sister's face? Like someone dropped an ice cube down her back. They didn't know. Not until right then. Growing up, the golden child spotlight never even grazed me. That beam was all hers, Emily. My little sister with her science fair ribbons, perfect handwriting, and those eyes she knew how to widen just right when she needed something. Emily never walked, she glided. Through school, through family dinners, through life. And me? I was the shadow kid. The one who just needed to figure things out. Translation, the one who didn't have a neat label for the family to show off. I remember when she got into that fancy liberal arts college, there was a cake, balloons, even one of those giant cards people sign at office parties. When I launched my second startup? Not even a text. But see, I never resented her success. Not really. What got me was the way they treated mine like a phase. Every step I climbed, they looked down from the pedestal they built for her. That's the part that hurt. Mom once told me after I skipped college to work on a project full-time, "Don't worry, honey, not everyone's meant for the big leagues." I laughed like it was funny. It wasn't. And Dad? He'd just grunt over his coffee and say things like, "Hope you've got a plan B when that coding thing dries up." So when I got the call a week before Mom's birthday, "Let's keep it small this year, just Emily and Ethan." You understand, right? I pretended I did. But inside, yeah, it stung. Again. I didn't push. Didn't argue. Didn't even let them hear the crack in my voice. Just hung up, told them to have a good time, and went back to my real life, the one they never asked about. Turns out Ethan had been trying to get into my company for months. Mid-level guy at a mid-level firm trying to pivot up. Smart, sure. But not standout. Not leadership material. I never looked at his resume twice. Guess that changed when he realized who'd been holding the gate the whole time. It was deliciously awkward. The way his voice trembled when he asked if I was the Michael from Stratavate Tech. My team. My division. The one I built after being told I'd never amount to anything without a real degree. I didn't rub it in. Not then. I just smiled, nodded politely, and said, "Good luck with the application." Then I ended the call. 2 hours later, my dad texted me for the first time in months. "Let's talk." That's when I had to ask myself a real question, one I've been putting off for years. Do I want them back in my life, now that they finally want in? I stared at that text from my dad for way longer than I'd like to admit. Let's talk. 3 little words. Soft as they seemed, they carried more weight than anything he'd said to me in years. This was a man who once told me birthdays were for children and suckers. A man who, when I called after my first company landed a 6-figure seed round, asked if I was still doing that computer thing. And now? He wanted to talk. I didn't answer right away. I let it sit there on my phone screen, pulsing with a weird kind of power. I even caught myself rereading it like it might say something different the 5th time. I walked around my apartment that night, trying to picture it. What would that conversation even look like? Him sitting stiffly in the chair across from me, trying to sound humble but tripping over his own pride? My mom, teary-eyed, calling me her brilliant boy like those years of ignoring me never happened? And Emily? What would she say now that her successful boyfriend had been humbled by the brother she spent years pretending wasn't worth noticing? Truth is, I didn't know if I was ready to see them as human yet. Or maybe I didn't know if I wanted them to see me as human only because they finally had to. Because here's the thing, success is weird when you come from a family that never expected it from you. It doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like a test. A trick. Like you're waiting for them to yank the rug out, remind you that no matter what you've built, you're still the kid they left out of the group photos. And yet, there was a part of me, call it foolish, call it hopeful, that still wanted to walk through that door. Still wanted to hear them say the words I'd been aching for since I was a teenager. We were wrong. I sat on my couch, phone still in hand, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I typed, "What do you want to talk about?" Then deleted it. Typed again. "Now you want to talk?" Deleted that too. Finally, I just stared at the blinking cursor and asked myself the real question. If I open this door, what exactly am I letting in? He showed up at my office. Not a text reply, not a phone call. He showed up. My assistant buzzed me, said there was a Mr. Whitaker here, says he's your father? Her voice had that tentative edge people get when something doesn't fit the usual script. I told her to send him in before I could think better of it. He walked in like he was stepping into a negotiation, not a reunion. Navy blazer, hair combed back, eyes scanning the walls like he was looking for proof that I really lived here. Like maybe this was all an elaborate prank I'd pulled to get the upper hand. "Nice place," he muttered, not quite complimenting, not quite accusing. "Didn't realize you were in the city," I said. He looked around for a chair, chose the one across from me. Sat stiff, like his spine didn't quite know how to relax. "I wanted to see you in person." After what happened at your mother's birthday, he trailed off. I waited. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. "That video call, well, it surprised us," he finally said. "Didn't know you were doing all that. Running things. You could have told us." That's what he led with. "You could have told us." Like the problem was a lack of updates. Like if I just sent quarterly newsletters about my life, everything would have been fine. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Why would I tell people who weren't listening? He flinched a little. Just enough to notice. "Look," he sighed, "I know things haven't been balanced. Maybe we gave your sister more attention than we should have. But that doesn't mean we don't care about you." I raised an eyebrow. "You banned me from the birthday dinner." He shifted in his seat, already defensive. "It wasn't personal. Emily wanted to introduce Ethan properly, and we thought it might be better if the night wasn't tense." Tense. That's how they've always seen me. The walking disruption. The awkward background noise in their curated family photos. He looked at me then, really looked. Saw the office space I designed, the framed article on the wall from a tech magazine calling my startup a quiet storm in the industry. He saw the life I'd built without asking for a dime or a dinner invitation. His voice dropped a little. "We misjudged you." I didn't say anything. He leaned forward. "Emily didn't know he worked for you. None of us did. But maybe this is a good thing. A turning point. We could have dinner, the four of us. Just talk. Just talk." As if years of being sidelined could be swept up in a single evening over steak. But part of me, the old part, the kid in the hoodie waiting to be picked up after soccer practice while they forgot the time, wanted to say yes. Instead, I said, "I'll think about it." He nodded, stood, gave the room another once-over. "You've done well. You should be proud of yourself." Then he left. And I sat there for a long time, trying to figure out what hurt more, his apology or how late it came. 3 days later, my sister showed up at my place. I live in a quiet building, not flashy, not gated, but nice enough to make a statement. She buzzed from the lobby, and when I answered, her voice cracked just a little. "Can we talk?" That was new. Emily never asked to talk. She summoned, announced, declared. But asking? That was different. I buzzed her in mostly out of curiosity. She stepped in like someone walking into a courtroom, makeup perfect, hair done like she just stepped off a commercial shoot. But I could tell. The edges were fraying. Her heels clicked across the hardwood like little accusations. "I didn't know," she said before I even offered her a seat. "About Ethan. About you. About the company." I leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "You didn't ask." She hesitated like she'd been expecting me to throw her a softer opening. "I always thought you were doing okay," she said, which might have been the least believable sentence ever spoken in that apartment. "But I didn't realize you were," she struggled for the word, "this." There it was again. This. Success, power, independence, call it what you want. Whatever I'd become, it didn't fit into the file folder she'd mentally labeled older brother, underachiever. He's freaking out, she said, meaning Ethan. He keeps talking about how his interview's probably blown, that he embarrassed himself in front of you. I just raised an eyebrow. He thinks you're going to tank his application, she added. Are you? Now we were getting to it. This wasn't just about family. This was about saving face. I shrugged. Depends. Is he any good? Emily scoffed, but her bravado was slipping. This isn't a game, Michael. No, I said, calm as ever. It's not. But that didn't stop you all from treating my life like one. She dropped into the chair at the edge of the kitchen table, suddenly looking very young, very tired. I didn't mean for this to get so messed up, she muttered. Dad said you'd make things awkward if you came to Mom's dinner. I didn't want drama. And what did you think banning me would be? I asked. Subtle? She didn't answer right away. Just stared at her hands like they might have a solution written on them. Then she asked the question I wasn't expecting. Why didn't you tell me? It hit me harder than I expected. Because the truth was I used to want to. For years I waited for her to ask. To care. To meet me halfway. But she never did. You weren't listening, I said. None of you were. Her eyes watered, and for a second I thought she might actually cry. I messed up, she whispered. And I believed her. For a second. But then she followed it up with, can you put in a good word for Ethan? And just like that, the illusion shattered. That's when I realized something. They weren't sorry. They were scared. My mom called next. Not a text. Not a thinking of you email. A full-blown phone call with a shaky voice and a carefully rehearsed tone that said something had gone terribly wrong, but I'm pretending this is normal. Michael, she said, drawing it out like a plea. Can we talk? My first instinct was to hang up. Not out of anger, just habit. Years of silence will do that. But something in me was tired of waiting. Tired of guessing whether this was about closure or cleanup. So I said, go ahead. She dove right in. We've been thinking a lot. Your father and I. About how we've treated you. I didn't say anything. I know we haven't always made the best decisions, she continued, voice quivering like a badly tuned violin. And I want you to know we're proud of you. That was new. And we'd really like to make things right. There it was. Did Ethan tell you to call? I asked flat. No, she said too quickly. Then added, well, he's upset, of course. But this isn't about him. This is about you. Us. Your family. Funny how my family always remembers I exist when there's something to fix. Or someone to impress. She kept going, this time with the greatest hits, photos she'd found of me as a kid, stories of how I used to line up my action figures in color order, how brilliant I was with puzzles. Then came the kicker. I'm thinking of planning a dinner, she said. A birthday redo. Just for you. Your sister and Ethan will be there, of course, but it's your night. I laughed. Out loud. A full, honest, sharp little bark of laughter. A birthday redo? I repeated. Yes, she said, hopeful. You deserve that. I didn't have the heart to tell her I hadn't celebrated my birthday in years. Not in the way they meant. No candles, no speeches. Just a quiet dinner with close friends, people who didn't need to fix their mistakes with cake. I'll think about it, I said, already knowing I wouldn't. That night, I sat with the weirdest mix of emotions. There they were, 3 people who'd dismissed me for years, trying to rewrite history. Not because they'd grown, but because life had turned the lights on and exposed all the cracks. And here I was, with the power to either extend the olive branch or walk away. The strangest part? It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like relief. They weren't gods anymore. Not giants. Not gatekeepers. Just people. Flawed, scrambling, a little desperate. Trying to throw parties to patch holes they refused to see before. And me? I wasn't waiting at the window anymore. It was almost poetic, the way it happened. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, our office's standard interview slot. I walked past reception with my coffee, nodded to a couple of the engineers, and froze. There he was. Ethan. Fresh haircut. New suit. Folder clutched tight like it held a lifeline. He looked up, spotted me, and for a moment, he paled. Like he'd hoped maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't be in that day. No such luck. I nodded, gave him the same smile I give every candidate, and gestured toward the glass conference room. He stood quickly, nervously. Mr. Linton, he said, trying too hard. Thanks for seeing me again. Michael is fine, I replied, neutral. Let's get started. I let my lead project manager run most of the interview. She didn't know the backstory, and frankly, I didn't want to taint the process. Ethan answered every question like he was reading from a playbook. His resume was solid, but his answers? Safe. Slick. All polish, no grit. 15 minutes in, she looked at me. Anything you'd like to ask, Michael? I took a breath. Looked Ethan in the eye. Sure, I said. Ethan, could you tell me about a time you got ahead by stepping on someone else? And how you handled the fallout? His mouth opened. Then closed. Then opened again. I'm not sure I understand. I tilted my head. Sure you do. His eyes flicked around the room. No lifelines. I guess I try to work collaboratively. I don't believe in stepping on people, he said quickly. That's not who I am. I nodded. That's good to hear. The rest of the interview passed like slow molasses. We thanked him. He left, shaking hands, still trying to salvage something. As soon as he was gone, my project manager turned to me. Not a fit, she said, jotting a note. I didn't even have to weigh in. She was right. Not because of the family connection. Not because of the past. Because he wasn't what we needed. Later that afternoon, I sat in my office watching the sunlight crawl across the concrete skyline, and I realized something. I had just made a decision. Not out of spite. Not out of vengeance. Out of clarity. For the first time in my life, I was seeing my family without the filters. Without the need to prove anything. Without the pain clouding every interaction. Ethan would move on. Probably land somewhere decent. My sister would spin it as a near miss. My parents would still be clinging to that birthday dinner like it could undo decades of silence. But me? I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. The invitation came in the mail. Handwritten. Cream-colored cardstock. My name in cursive on the envelope, the kind you get from a wedding or someone trying to pretend things are fancy. You were invited to a private family dinner to celebrate new beginnings. Hosted by Elaine and Thomas Linton. 7 p.m. this Sunday. No RSVP number. Just an address. Their house. The same one where I used to eat reheated spaghetti while Emily got steak tips on ballet nights. The same table where I once showed them my first check from a freelance job only to have my dad ask if it was taxable or just side hustle nonsense. I put the card on the counter. Didn't throw it out. Just left it there like it might change shape if I stared at it long enough. That weekend, I walked by it 5 times. Each time, I imagined the scene, my mom lighting candles, my dad pouring wine he pretended to know about, Emily laughing just a little too loudly at nothing. A clean slate, they'd probably say. A fresh start. Except it wasn't. Not really. Sunday rolled around and I found myself pacing. Not out of indecision, but out of something deeper. That quiet voice in the back of your skull that whispers maybe this time it'll be different. At 6:30, I got in the car. At 6:50, I parked around the corner. And at 6:58, I watched through their dining room window as they sat down. Without me. 3 plates. No empty seat. No candle waiting to be lit for the son they'd finally invited back. I should have felt crushed. But I didn't. I felt relieved. Because the truth was they weren't ready. Not for the real me. Not for the quiet version of success that didn't need their validation. They wanted the illusion of reconciliation. A scene they could stage, take a picture of, and use as proof that everything had been fixed. I walked away without knocking. Stopped by my favorite diner on the way home. Ordered breakfast for dinner. The waitress asked if I wanted extra syrup and I said yes because that felt like something a free man would do. I got home, tossed the invitation in the trash, and texted a friend I hadn't seen in a while. You know what? I didn't need that dinner. Because deep down, I finally understood. It was never about being invited. It was about whether I wanted to sit at their table at all. I found it 2 weeks later. Tucked into my mailbox between a cable bill and one of those supermarket flyers nobody ever reads. No return address. Same cursive handwriting. I almost tossed it without opening, figured it was another invite, or worse, a guilt trip disguised as an olive branch. But something told me to read it. It wasn't from my parents. Not from Emily. Not from Ethan. It was from my grandmother. She died when I was 21. Quiet, kind woman. Not loud like the rest of them, but always observant. The type who noticed when you skipped dessert or when your smile didn't quite reach your eyes. She'd mailed the letter 5 years ago. It had been returned and forwarded twice, finally landing at my new address, postmarked and resent by someone who'd clearly come across it while cleaning out her things. Maybe an old neighbor. Maybe a lawyer. I'll never know. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened it with the kind of careful reverence I hadn't felt in years. Her handwriting, still neat, still steady. Michael, I don't know when you'll read this, but I hope it's when you're in a place where the world feels big, not small. You always had a quiet strength about you, like someone building something no one else could see yet. I saw it. I'm sorry they didn't. I know things at home haven't always been fair. You've been carrying a weight you shouldn't have had to carry alone. I want you to know that I believe in you. Not in some vague, distant way, but truly. The kind of belief that doesn't come with conditions. Whatever you decide to do with this family of ours, whether you come back or walk away, I want you to choose peace. Not out of guilt, not out of anger, but because you deserve a life where your light isn't dimmed by people too blind to see it. You are not the broken one, sweetheart. Never were. Love always. Grandma. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then I cried. Not the messy, hiccuping kind. Just quiet tears that slid down without asking for permission. The kind that come from relief more than pain. Because she saw me. She'd seen me. And even though she was gone, she gave me the permission I hadn't known I'd been waiting for. To let go. Not in anger. Not in bitterness. But with grace. That night, I wrote my own letter. Not to them. To myself. It said, "You made it. You didn't need their table. You built your own." And I meant it. I taped my grandmother's letter to the inside of my desk drawer where I keep things that matter. Not because I needed a reminder of what they did, but because I needed to remember who I became in spite of it. The end.